Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of Spill the RT. I am here with Josh. Hey, Josh, what's the crack?
I mean, 61. 61.
61.
We're old. We're very old.
Very old, and yet we
Yep.
still continue to discuss our demise, our age demise.
Well, strangely enough, the world continues to devolve around us, and somebody has to document the decline, and here we are.
Here we are. Yes, we are. And what a
Right?
show we have ahead for them. With the response to the decline of our wonderful planet. However, with decline also comes opportunity, and we have those sort of
There
stories
you
too.
go.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah,
Disaster capitalism, baby. That's what the world's all about.
absolutely, absolutely. We've got the good, we've got the bad, we've got the evil. So yeah, I
So,
mean,
of those, which one are you? The good, the bad, or the evil?
well, it depends on what I've on, depends on what sort of clothes I'm wearing
I know
generally.
which one I
T
am.
Today I've
That's
got
that's
I've got angel and devil, so I mean we're kind of just sporting both. I can like just change costume in a second.
that's
And then
true. You did. You dressed up for some reason. You went from your
I
sporty
didn't,
sport
I'm
to your
freezing. Um so it's like to get
For
what
those
this
that
is the
don't know, Eamon got a new house, but they haven't paid for the heat, so
no,
it's
no
very
electricity.
cold.
I mean, when you figure out how much we spent in the house, we won't be paying for heat for the next, I'd say, 10 years. So that's
Nice.
fine. And then with inflation and all of that, we won't actually be end up. Look, and even I had to paint my own fence.
It's that no, it's that line from Whitnall. Bring in the chairs, bring in the barn if you have to. Like
Yeah,
whatever you need, burn it.
burn it, burn it. Yeah, it'd get very smoky though, wouldn't it? Like, and you're not actually. Sorry, you can't even do that, Josh. Can't even do that because of the CO2 emissions. And
That's true.
I know,
London likes its
I
clean
know,
skies these days.
it
That's the
does.
way it goes.
Well, Josh.
Anyhow, shall we
That's
talk about
that.
the week?
Maybe that's worth doing because our poor old guest, our poor young guest in the waiting room, is is I would say an eager beaver and ready to get going. So we should probably get on with things.
So this week, a
Well,
follow up, a follow up with China's first robot games,
we love China.
AI
We
art
love robots.
extortion,
Hmm.
AI art extortion, rechargeable bioluminescent succulents, say that three times fast, MIT's 1 trillion frames per second camera, which is really cool, and the evolution of how people have used ChatGPT. All that and a
Ah,
brand new guest are up next as we spin our tea. Welcome to
that's
episode 61.
61. That sounds like a jam-packed show. And I think before we start talking any more rubbish, let's bring on our guests all the way from the UK. It is Brian Parker. Hello, Brian.
Hello there. Nice to see
Hello?
you.
Are you good, Brian?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. I definitely pronounced your name wrong. It's Brian Baker, isn't
Yes,
it?
it's
Not Brian
Baker.
Barker. You're not barking today. Maybe you're barking today.
Don't worry. I've had many Barkers and also many Brains. Brain Baker.
Excellent.
Even my colleagues at work used to call me Brain sometimes in their emails, and it even happened in a book acknowledgements. Actually, when I showed it to the person who did it, they were absolutely mortified, and I was rolling around on the floor.
You're well, yeah. Well, it's good that you're a good sport.
Yeah, thank you. That's why I'm on here, of course.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm sure you go way back with Josh, so I'm excited. I'm excited to hear some stories.
Well, I have
Mm.
stories. I have more stories about Brian than Brian has about me. So I would say we don't want to go down that road necessarily.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Have you had any ice picks today yet, Josh?
No, no, I am sober. It's early in my day. I'm good,
Oh
man.
dear.
I
Oh
am not
dear.
celebrating anything other than life itself. But
Brian,
for
you need
those that
to.
don't know,
Well, what do
Brian
they
and I
don't
have
know?
known each other. Well,
Okay.
Brian and I have known each other for 30 years. So we were in
Okay.
grad school together at University of Liverpool a long, long time ago.
Liverpool. Liverpool.
Neither one of us, I think I had glasses at that point, but I don't think you had glasses. But when neither one of us
No,
definitely, there was no gray. There was
No.
definitely no gray.
no, these are only reading glasses. I've only had them the last few years, actually. So
Yeah.
eventually, the academic life got to me, and
Yeah.
but that made a big difference because I realised that reading became something that I was not doing because I couldn't really see very well.
Huh. That's
It's
That's
interesting.
it's helpful to have the
it's
specs.
a
Yeah.
terrible thing to realise that
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, as is a kind of another running theme in your show, isn't it? About getting older.
Yeah,
Um,
it
and
is.
I'm probably the oldest one here, I imagine. But yeah, kind of it is a terrible thing. And but
Yeah,
I
you
actually
are.
quite like them. I actually quite like wearing them. And in fact, I wear them around. Don't forget I'm wearing them. And I start bumping into things because they're really kind of they're short. Well, I haven't got in the car yet with them, so that's the next thing where my wife will have to say, "Brian, what are you doing?" It'll be Mr. Magoo.
You just put
Mr.
them up on
Magoo.
your forehead. You'll be fine. You'll be
It's
fine.
OG.
Well,
Yeah.
but switching off to our first story, you won't have to worry about driving for much longer anyway. You know why?
Why?
Off to Beijing we go,
We love China.
where the first 500 robots have competed. Well, you could call it competing, I guess, because it technically happened in the first Robot Olympics.
Yes.
And
It's the Robo Olympics, if you will.
what was most beautiful to me about this is you actually see the handlers running alongside them, or as they tumble and fall, literally grabbing them like you grab a 2-year-old who's about to run out into the street and lifting them back up and to stand them back up. Or the boxer. Why are they wearing headgear? How could I possibly damage another robot wearing? So this little guy is wearing the headgear and is trying to box the human who's trying to get another robot ready to go. The human's kicking the robot away. The robot is just doing this little like punch up thing.
Okay.
This is right. This is the future of our clanker life right here. There you
Well,
go.
we all know your obsession with Robo Wars because we brought up this story quite a few times. So I feel like this is just next level. What is the purpose of this? Like, I mean, who wants to see robots racing each other?
Well, apparently the crowd both enjoyed the spectacle and the comedy and humor of what was taking place.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and the U.S. participated. We had teams that were part of this as well. No one invited me, but
Brian,
what do
would
you
you
think,
go to see
Brian?
this?
I thought it had the feel of a kind of school sports day.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the kid will be kind of the robot will be running straight and it'd be like Danny, turn, and they'll be right into the wall. And
Waiting for the egg and spoon race.
but also the kind of I found it quite touching in a way because they ran so poorly. They were so uncoordinated.
Yes.
So, like you said, Josh, they were like 4 or 5 year olds,
Yeah.
and so I felt quite kind of sad when one of them did a kind of a header face planted and then
Oh,
turned into this heap of metal.
I know it
Um,
twisted it.
all the limbs were kind of everywhere, and you kind of thought, "Oh
Yeah.
my goodness,"
It was like something that AI slot produces, only it wasn't. This was really happening, right?
oh.
The football
It's
was
quite touching.
fantastic. The football was fantastic. The goalie standing there and not moving. The striker is literally 4 feet away with the ball in between them and unable to kick. And so then the handler has to come over and move the striker so that they can then kick the ball back into play. It's like if you're playing foosball and it gets stuck in the corner. Only it was live. It was robot. Like it was just. I wish
Do
I
you think
had
they
been
get?
there purely for the comedy. It just would have been glorious.
Do you think some of the robots get sent off for foul play?
You got a red card.
Yeah, off.
Well, I
You know
suppose
what happened? Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just wondering, like, because they're obviously controlled by humans, so like the red card is clearly going to the operator, not to the robot.
No, these are autonomous, right? These are autonomous. So what happened
Ah,
just the other day in San Francisco? Waymo, they're the ones that do the driverless cars, right?
mm,
Completely autonomous. These, Jaguar got purchased by Ford, and so basically Waymo's cars are Jaguars. And it got pulled over. It did an illegal turn at a DUI stop. They were stopping cars to see who was drunk. It
hmm.
decided to do an illegal U-turn and split. So the cops went after it and pulled it over, thinking it's a drunk who doesn't want to get breathalyzed, right? The cop makes it roll down the window. There's nobody in the fucking car. They
That's
can't issue a
hilarious.
ticket. They can't issue a ticket. And the rule is, the way this is written is, if there's a human guide in the front of the car, then they could write a ticket, even if there was no human driving. But there was nobody in the car at all, right? So Waymo doesn't get the ticket, and the violation just kind of disappears into thin air. What
So
AI wants,
did
AI
you say the
gets.
human guy or the human person? As in
What
like
do you mean?
is it like so any human that's in the car will be the one that gets the
Now,
ticket?
if you're in the back and you're being driven, you wouldn't
Yes.
get a ticket if it broke the law, right?
Well, of
But
course not.
sometimes, but sometimes in the process of training these vehicles, they have a person from the company who's sitting in the
Uh,
passenger seat and supposed to be monitoring to making sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing,
so
right?
they're getting the ticket.
they would get the ticket. But in this
Yeah.
instance, there was nobody in the car at
Yeah.
all. And like the runners, that was the whole thing about the runners. The handlers are running
Mm.
alongside them, running as fast as the little robots can pump their little legs. And the
Mm.
robots are drifting off, and they're like, I
It's a
wouldn't
ver-
get in a car with these
it's a
things
very
based on how.
it's a very surreal experience. I only witnessed it when I was in San Francisco last year. Or was the year before last, and it was like seeing the amount of like the Uber equivalents. Is it Waymo? That's what they're called. Is it
Yeah,
that those? Yeah. So
yeah,
like it was surreal.
yeah. It's bizarre. It's absolutely
Hmm.
bizarre. And just
You
the
should have
idea that there's
a
no
robot sitting.
culpability. Go
I
ahead,
was
Is
going
it?
to say
Ryan.
you should have a robot sitting in the passenger seat, not in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
and that would really freak the cop out. Well, are you driving? No, he's in the passenger seat. Oh,
Yeah.
So if you
here's
had
my
a
license.
car, if you had a car with three robots in it, would you qualify for the carpool lane? Like, at what point does this absolute insanity?
Okay.
I'm
Okay. Well.
serious, right? Like, because there are people who try to get around carpool restrictions like that. They have like a dummy they put in the car. They'll put a hat over it and give it sunglasses to make it look like they have an extra body in their car, even though they don't, right? Well,
Hmm.
a robot, technically, particularly when it's slave to an AI, that's an autonomous being on whatever level you want to see it as, right?
Yeah.
So,
I'd like to shift back to that part of it for a second. When you're building these robots that are competing for the Olympics, who is winning the prize? The robot or the person that's building it
the,
or the manufacturer?
the team, the
The
team.
team. Okay.
Yeah. That's an age old thing going back to the origins of robotic wars and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Because back in the day when it was hard lines, the original robot wars, they weren't wireless. There was a
Yeah.
line that would run. So there had to be a physical controller happening. Sometimes there was more than one person controlling it because like flames and saws and shit while someone else is driving it. So a long time ago, the precedent was set that like what the robot does, if there's a team behind it, it's the team that gets the credit because the
Okay.
robot's not building itself, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's the other part of this. The Chinese now have started to assemble factories where the robots are assembling more robots.
I that was my next question. I'm like, is
Yes,
that what it's just
yes.
going to become? And then in which
No,
case,
that's what it
we're
already
You've got it.
has. It's
we are
already. I literally saw a video of an
I
entire truck
done.
assembled in less than 2 minutes by a team of 200 robots.
So when are they the ones that are going to make the decisions as to what these robots are doing? Oh,
That's an interesting question.
mm,
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know. Certainly in a place like China, right, where you have this huge population pressure,
yeah.
if you need the construction, but at the same time, if you displace all these bodies, what are you then going to do with really have no work?
And who is monitoring the ethics of all of this?
I suspect it's not being monitored in the way that we would think of monitoring at all.
God. You see, every time I speak with you, Josh, I just get more terrified about
But
the
wait,
future.
it gets worse. It
Oh
gets worse.
dear.
Ready?
Yes.
Story number two.
Okay.
Off we go. So you know how people will try to like steal your data and then ransomware it to you, right?
Yes.
Like unless you give us this amount of money, you don't get your files back, right?
Mm.
So now there's a team of hackers that are like screwing around with artists and saying that if they don't pay them off, they will upload their materials into LLMs. So it becomes part of the language model's corpus. And then like essentially your copyright and trademark are being violated because once it's into the belly of the LLM beast, it's never getting out. How's
Okay.
that? You're being blackmailed with the threat of AI taking your shit.
Makes me nostalgic for the days of kind of letters and brown paper envelopes and bags full of dollars. This is quite extraordinary, isn't it? And then they get paid in Bitcoin, even better. You get greenbacks.
A friend of ours has written a book about the director of Sexy Beast. And I just think of the scene in Sexy Beast, right? You go underneath, you tunnel, the water comes down, you get your ass out of there before the electricity zaps you. Like that's what real theft should be. This stuff is just surreal and just unreal on a certain level.
Mm. I've such little commentary on this because it completely overwhelms me when I start thinking about this because I'm like, how does one approach this as a generic individual who is not is connected to IT and is connected to the understanding of technology, but and at a certain level. But if you think about artists or if you think about musicians or filmmakers or writers who are not necessarily all that connected to the auto industry insofar as like artificial intelligence and all of that. They don't know how to manage that or how to just become understood as to what's going on. Maybe the 12-year-olds today who are glued to their phones and are completely obsessed with technology and it is just the language that they speak now will be able to manage that situation. But I think people who are my generation anyway and above are going to be fairly challenged by this.
So I had this moment of like I said, like a kind of epiphanic crisis moment about 6 months ago with this stuff because I had to start
Okay.
using it for work.
Yes.
And I asked it, I was like, so what am I supposed to do as a creator? Right. I make stuff that is easily reproducible, but isn't really because it involves having to be in the room with it too. And it
Mm,
said to me, look, either take everything off the web so that no one has access to it unless they pay you to even be able to see it, or go the opposite route, put everything out there and make your peace with it. Those are basically your two options because anything in the middle will eventually end up in
yeah.
their maw at some
Mm,
point, right? Even
mm,
if you don't do it, someone else, because think about how social media is designed to like repost what people give you. So
mm.
even if it's not you feeding it, someone else can do it just because you have it out there,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah. Brian,
And so,
how do you manage this evolving like culture?
I mean, I'm torn. I think, and that in a way, I do like, and I've always been interested in the possibilities of remix and appropriative art and collage and the capacities for gluing stuff together that from found materials. You know, going
Mm,
back to Duchamp, etc., is one of those streams of art that I found really fascinating and energizing. But how this that connects with what AI is doing in terms of scraping content off the web and monetizing it, I think that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, I think for me, if you're in a tradition of DIY where perhaps you're giving your work away, or it's kind of some kind of mutuality where it's being circulated through channels that you are at least partially validating or using
yeah,
deliberately, then yes, I mean, I think that's a perfectly reasonable artistic practice. But when it's being simply used to make money for someone else, I think for me that becomes something a bit different.
mm,
but see, what you started off there was that AI is doing the scraping. It's not them,
Yeah.
right? It's
Mm,
humans that are doing
mm,
the scraping and humans that are deciding to monetize. And the AI is just a particular tool,
mm.
mm,
right? And
yeah.
so this is this is an age-old issue, certainly since the issue of photography and art and whether stuff was going to be used for commercial purposes versus
Mm.
high or fine art. And all we've done is just attenuate what the tool is that's being used to do it, right? Now it's automated in a way that it wouldn't have been in the past, but it's still the basic issue. If you put your stuff out there, then others are going to see it, use it,
Mm.
copy it, and take it.
I
That's why
ha
ASCAP was developed for music. That's why
yeah,
trademark and copyright were developed for print, right? Because that's your balance against people taking it and not paying you back for it. Of
yeah.
course, I would argue the problem here is that you thought that monetization is the frame we should be using to consider any of this, right?
Mm.
That doesn't work for me at all in terms of art. Art and money are like that's oil and water. I know
So
that we try to make them mix, but they really shouldn't be.
something that I've kind of come to realize, especially in the later editions of ChatGPT or any of the other AI resources, is that they are starting to source things a lot more and more specifically.
Yeah.
So you would feel that potentially that if you are then going to, so say an image, you were asking for a certain image or something to pull from another part, if you were in another software that would supply images or it was an image-based AI generator, that they would then identify the sources in which were used to collate that particular image or to put that one together. And if you were to use that going forward, that there should be a prevention or some sort of paywall that would then give the monetization from the used source to the artist in which it was scraped from. Because if they're able to identify that image, I feel like I'm making groundbreaking sort of conversation here, then they should be able to like push that back.
So you got to remember that ChatGPT at one point had bifurcated to like 5 or 6 different models that were available, and
Yes. Yeah.
they've now concatenated it back,
Yeah.
and that was done intentionally to give better responses for queries on the
Yes.
research side. right? Because they were
Yes.
having all these hallucination issues, all these
Yeah.
issues of trust. The video and visual side of this, though,
Mm.
that's completely different. And
Yeah.
I don't know, because like that was forcing it through evolution, iteration of the code, that you
Mm.
have to give me, you have to point to something that's real. This isn't working otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But the way in which that like Midgard and the other kinds of
A
visual
mid-journey.
generators,
Yeah.
whatever it's called,
Mm.
they're designed to have a kind of composite. They're not
Yeah.
looking at one or two. They're looking at hundreds or thousands.
Sure.
And that's what
Yeah.
then, that's why you end up with Shrimp Jesus looking like Shrimp Jesus, right? Because so many images of shrimp and so many images of Jesus, and what you get is, right?
I think something as well. I this is going back to how we validate what we could classify as an art piece from a prompted image generation. And I feel that there's a particular set designer, and I won't mention his name because I know him. But he's created some like incredible looking sets that are based on that. But I mean, I think if you know the basis of what the fundamentals of a set design would be and how they are come together, and you want to pick on certain periods to accentuate that style language through the set design, then you're going to be able to create an image, whether you've been a set designer or not. And I think there's a lot of imagery that I'm coming across now across feeds that are people are saying this is mine and it's copyrighted to me because I've designed this, even though I've designed it through the likes of Midjourney. And it's just like I'm just kind of like, well, girl, you didn't spend like
So this is why I brought in story number 3.
excellent. Okay,
So
so I made a
story
nice
number
segue.
3, because I anticipated this, right? So story number 3 is about the creation of bioluminescent cactus succulents, right?
Hmm.
Which is really cool when you think about it. Number one, because they're essentially like breeding into it the ability to fluoresce, to
Yeah,
phosphoresce. Awesome. And then we have another picture that shows you all the different color variations and
yeah,
everything. Okay. Many artists who are doing installs are working with flora in the modern art world. Anyone who goes to an install sees people working with plants, right? So my question is, if these plants only cost like $1.20 a pop to make, right? Because they're just succulents. So
mm,
you're putting together an install, and what you're working with has all this stuff that's been created through technology that you haven't created yourself, but you are arranging the install, and that's what people are experiencing, right? Is
yeah.
that any different than having something like Midjourney, whatever the fuck it's called, like pulling together for you an image that you are then saying that you curated, because you didn't make the succulents, you didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that there's,
You're putting the pieces together, which is
so you're
essentially what
curating,
Midjourney is. Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
and that's, the science of this was cool, but in the context of like how technology is changing and being used by artists and creatives, right? It wasn't really about the succulent. It was when you go to use it for your artistic practice, how is that any different?
Okay, Brian, I need to hear your view on this.
Mm, yeah, yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying there, Josh, about that idea of the line through which you can kind of where artistic practice, in a sense, the kind of the boundary is that you move into something which is different from straight out ripping
Yeah.
off, essentially.
Yes.
I work with fluorescence, right? And one of
Hmm?
the issues is you have to get them to fluoresce, otherwise you can't see the fluorescent part of the painting, right? So I have custom frames I make with LED strips. I didn't make the LED strips, but without the LED strips, you're not going to see the fluorescence. Something like this was of interest to me because I can get it to fluoresce at UV light. And guess what? I can have a framing with these plants growing around it that provides the light I need to get the painting to fluoresce. But again, they're tools that allow me to a certain end. I'm curating what that experience looks like and is experienced, right?
Mm.
It's a
It's like
very,
painting tubes
it's a
rather than
slope.
making it yourself.
Yeah, it's a slope. It's not all or nothing, and it's not black or white. When
See,
I did street art, I didn't build the fucking wall. I didn't create the paint, right?
I really understand where you're going for, what you're going for with this. I do. I think it's too insane how you're connecting
But
these two
again,
things. But
but if you think back to like 1840 and this new thing where you can start to capture images on some kind of plate some way, wet
mm,
or dry,
Yeah.
If you were someone who had spent your career as a realist painter, right, your world is crumbling around you. Here we are 180 years later. The world is going to hell, but it has been every day since, and we've still survived. I just
Yeah.
think the panic about this stuff gets in the way of figuring out how to use it better and well.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah,
that
no,
part
I
of the
agree with that.
reason we don't do these things well is because it's tied to monetization. And when you don't do that, you see things very differently, and it gives you other options. That's all I ultimately I think is the way to think about it. But that's me, and what do I know?
It made me wonder whether we'd kind of, in a few years' time, go into the supermarket and there'd be fluorescent cabbages, and
Oh, I think
people could have them for dinner parties, and so you wouldn't need lighting. Basically your plates would kind of would luminesce,
yeah.
and then you could eat them and then die of strontium poisoning. Fantastic.
So here you go.
There's
That's all right.
there's an
But
idea
you
for
could
Lucy Lamb.
but you can see something like that in terms of packaging that would have something like that, right? That as
Yes.
gas is given off by whatever's sealed in it, it goes from green to yellow to red,
Yeah.
letting you know, don't buy this, right? That kind of stuff. Certainly, I think that's probably already en route. We have it with batteries now, right? You touch it, and here's like how much power is left in the battery and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay. So it's a complete side note to all of that. How do I get the fluorescent into my plants? And what sort
They
of material am I getting so that I
well,
don't
that's why
chemically destroy them?
Brian mentioned it. So it's a strontium aluminate. So that's what strontium is. It has a weak radioactive force, and so
Yeah.
you don't want to ingest it. It will probably poison you over time. But if you have it and it like gives off light, and that's
Yeah.
why you're getting this.
So if I decide to get myself a whole pile of succulents and put them into my new garden, um, tiny as it may be, how will I inject this into it, or what am
No,
I
no, no.
injecting into it?
It has been bred into it, so you'd have to buy the succulents. It's like a proprietary succulent.
Ha ha. Ha
And then,
ha.
since they are succulents, I would assume then you just take a cutting, and the cutting should be able to continue growing. And because succulents that's what you do, right? You put them in a little bit of water, and they just reproduce themselves. And that's why most succulents are clones. So I would suspect once you own a plant or two, you could have as many more as you want. It just takes a little while to grow them.
Do you reckon they'll be expensive?
No, they're $1.20.
For
They're
this
a dollar
for
20.
for the luminescent ones.
Yeah. Yes,
Amazing.
apparently
Okay.
it's very easy. It's one of those things that's not very difficult to do technically.
I'll
It
be
was
back in
just
just 1 second. I just need to go to Amazon. 2 secs. Yeah, they're available for 1.99. Put the link in the description below for everybody who wants to. All monetization link profits for those cross links will go towards the profits of New Collective. Thank you very much for supporting us.
no sponsorship here, but if you want to, we're happy to.
No, it's cool. It's cool. Where are we going to next, Josh? What's our next story?
So story number 4 is what is this? What is it?
It's the
Oh,
camera
it's the
that
camera.
outruns
It's the
light.
camera. Yes.
Back to our light.
Yes, they developed a camera now that can literally capture the movement of light. And what was insane about this is, so they filmed like light going through a Coke bottle, right? And they said if we actually watch the whole thing, it would take a year to watch what we filmed in like 4 seconds because of how many frames it actually captures. It's insane. It literally, you can see the light moving through things. Like, watch this.
This part is really cool. What I thought was really cool was how the shadow cast after the fact.
Yep.
It was really
Yep.
interesting.
But that looks like that's like super fast or something. That was shot. It's like time. It's what is it? A billionth of a second is what that records. It's this tiny little bit of time. And so if you were to watch the whole thing, it would take like a year to watch it all.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a photon moving through the bottle. This is just incredible.
So yeah, what we're watching, if you're listening, is just an image of the bottle that is having just the light ray go straight through it, but at like super slow motion.
Yeah.
Incredible.
About as slow as you can get.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
When it hits the cap, it kind of expands the light, doesn't it? Because it's not passing through the medium of the water anymore, and so kind of you have this slow flash.
It's
It's
like when you
beautiful.
take the flashlight and you put it in your mouth and you can see it through your cheek,
Yes, yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
hitting the plastic the same way. Yeah, the bullet through the out. It's just the technical capability of this is insane. I saw because it's the same kind of technology gets used for satellite imagery. So I saw
Mm.
a shot taken of New York City from up in low Earth orbit, and it was shot where each pixel was down to 10 centimeters. So the whole city 10 centimeters at a time had been captured. That's the level. You could see people from space. Like you could
Wow.
literally see them walking around. It was the most incredible shots I'd ever seen because it also captured the entire tri-state area at the same time. The
Oh wow.
density was insane.
Oh, we
So
must
it's
show
like
See the
that next
taking
sandwiches.
week. Hmm.
taking the density of that camera that's capturing the trillion frames per second and doing the same thing to get a wide angle shot instead. It's absolutely incredible.
You can
But
see
I
what they're
didn't
looking at on their phones.
but I included this not just because of the coolness of this stuff, but also thinking about full circle of these things, right? If AI is given this technology, well, guess what? Panopticon is like the barest way to describe what that would actually be,
Hmm.
right? You would be visible at all times in all places and toto.
Mm, mm.
Madness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read an article today, actually. Someone had broken in at a college to steal a couple paintings and it set off a motion alarm. So the college police just launched a drone that had a heat sensor and the drone just found the guy out in the fucking forest and then they sent the cop to go and arrest the guy, right? Like,
In a couple of years' time, they'll be sending one of those Chinese robots
that's so.
stumbling through the
Madness.
forest and falling
I
over.
Oh,
suspect in a couple of
stop.
years' time, we're all going to be hiding inside, like
With our doors locked. No,
by
or actually, do you know what? Here's something even more like scary. My dear partner in crime decided to put a automatic lock on the door. So the robot
yeah.
operated lock is just going to keep me locked in.
No, nope, or lock you out. No way. Nope, not
Yeah,
doing it.
You're
unless you
not
Nope,
coming
pay
in
it.
here. Pardon? Well, it's paid for. We paid for. We
nope,
voluntarily put it on the door, Brian.
nope,
Oh well, no,
nope.
that'll change. There'll be some kind of fee that you'll have to be. We're totally in Philip K. Dick world actually now,
Yeah,
where you have to kind of argue or pay the door to actually get in.
yeah,
Um,
it is.
that's that's what will happen next. If you don't pay your subscription, they'll lock you out of your house.
Well, it's kind of Philip K. Dick combined with Douglas Adams, right? Like I'm
Right.
wearing 42 for that reason today because it really is this kind of sense like the things are actively working against you, right? Like even if
Hmm.
you paid them, they would still want to recite poetry before they would do what it is you needed them to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's this idea that the world is being like on the one hand made more complicated but
Yeah.
also more aggravating as opposed to more complicated but easier,
Yeah.
right? Like the Jetsons, apparently I thought the world was going to be fantastic and easy. I thought Rosie was going to be down and she was going to be there for me and
Hmm.
my breakfast would be ready. Rosie's more likely to try to separate my head from my body and feed me
Jesus. Back in the 1800s, Josh, how many subscriptions did you pay for?
in the 1800s.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. What was it you were? You see, that's the thing. We now like are accepting of a subscription. It's just a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
It's like we're okay to pay a monthly subscription to something.
yeah,
So, but part of that is right when the media sphere collapsed and people still tried to get paid. The only
Yeah.
way that was going to happen, right? So, if you're a writer, you have Substack. If you're a musician, because you get like what is it, a tenth of a cent per stream, you
Hmm.
have Patreon, so that people will actually pay you what you're right. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason this stuff has evolved as this like movement counter movement kind of thing.
mm,
But to
Yeah, but
me, it just removes us further and further. Like I
it
think
does.
as artists, you're that's being led down the wrong road. But it's understandable because people do have to eat.
Yeah, while there are people who are very like supportive and empathetic and kind towards artists, there are still quite a percentage, the vast majority, in fact, that will freely and happily just pay their subscription to Spotify or Apple Music and get
Yeah,
everything for free anyway.
yeah, because they don't
And
care.
they don't care. They don't, but they're still they care enough to listen to it. Um,
Well, but do you have a Prime subscription?
do
I
I?
can say I do.
Yeah, I
Right.
do.
Okay. So everybody has a Prime subscription. Guess
Mhm.
what? Someone has to deliver that shit.
Yeah,
Right. Like, you think they're getting paid actually appropriately for the work that they're
no.
doing? I mean, I can't leave you a tip. I would leave you a tip if I could, right? There's literally no way to do that. I can't
Mm.
give you a thank you,
Yeah,
right? It's designed so that you get used,
yeah.
and the end user's not even supposed to be able to, right? Like,
Uh,
that's,
And there are so many documentaries out there about that that are super scary that we should be just like rejecting them. But the thing is, it's too convenient now.
well, that's the thing, right? It's convenience is ultimately, I think, no pun intended, the coin of the realm.
Yeah,
Because if people didn't want it, you can bitch and moan,
but they'll still
right?
get it.
Everyone was boo-hooing. There were certain people that wanted ChatGPT 3 years ago, and there was large groups of people that saw this as the end of the world. Number one, the world hasn't ended, right? But B, like, what? You're not going to stop it. It's
Oh,
open. The box has been opened, folks. Sorry, like,
yeah.
I didn't create the myth of Pandora. That's what happens. That's what humans do, right? If you say there's a box, don't open it. Guess what a human's going to do at some point?
Well, speaking of ChatGPT,
Exactly. See, what I was doing that on purpose.
Brian,
How
he's
do
very
people
clever.
use
He's very
how
clever,
do
Brian.
people use ChatGPT? That has actually changed over time. And there was a recent study done. I will point out this study was actually paid for by the company. So, in terms of how independent the auditing of its use is, who knows? Because they're the ones who are paying for this information. But what they say is, look, a large group of people use it for writing assistance, not to actually write original work, but to help them edit. And like we're talking about, collate, change, do various things, right? They're starting with an idea and the AI is helping them to develop in some kind of way.
Hmm.
And then other people are using it essentially to replace the web. They no longer use Google. They no
Yeah,
longer independently go to different websites themselves,
yeah,
right? They just say to ChatGPT, tell me X, Y, and Z.
yeah.
And the problem with all of that, I would say, is again, it's what these things are trained on.
Hmm.
If the corpus ain't good, if
Yeah,
attempts aren't made to make that corpus better over time, and people are relying on this, this is worse than Fox News. This is worse than, because you're trusting with no verification whatsoever a medical diagnosis, how to get to someplace, what your business plan should look like. Like, just think about all the kinds of queries that people are doing where they would have done some of that homework themselves. They're just letting the AI do it for them all.
yeah. Brian, what do you
And
It's
think?
almost become it's also become personified though, isn't it? In a way,
for
the
some
kind of
people, it is, yeah.
and so I mean, that's a really interesting development, I think, where unlike Google or whatever chat engine search engine you might want to use, or going to different websites, there's something to do with a kind of assumption of some kind of personal or intimate connection,
So,
Hmm.
which is very different to the way in which the web used to operate.
but one of the so the, they downplayed this in their report. 1% is the way they talk about it. But that 1% that's like evolving into not just a persona, but an actual relationship is also
Yeah,
developing psychoses and schizophrenia and all kinds of truly negative things. There are people that are having like delusional religious experiences with Chat GPT, and it's feeding it. They're not just having this like, oh, I'm having this experience. It's saying, no, I am the one. You're right. Let me show you the way. Let me give you the shining fucking path. And these people that are going out and killing themselves, they're losing their minds. They're like selling their saving. 1%. But if you have 4 billion people using you, well, 1% of 4 billion is a lot of fucking people.
Yeah.
That's 40 million people that are having a psychosis from this shit.
it's interesting because we've been talking a lot about the technical, kind of relation between us as human beings and what it might mean with regard to art practice or whatever. But there's something which is now to do with the affective,
Yeah.
to do with people's emotional responses and
Yeah.
landscape, which
Yeah.
is now obviously kind of being built into something like ChatGPT, and that's why it's been so successful, is because it offers something other than just a kind of a terminal sitting in front of you.
Mm.
There's a kind of faux an avatar, someone that seems to have quasi-human traits. It's going back to the robots again, isn't it?
But it's
But
slavish. It's slavish. It tries to praise you as opposed to like really be there for you, right?
Mm.
It's not being critical, right?
No,
It's
but
like,
that's very face value, isn't it? It's just like this is how we feel. This is what you're supposed to feel, and well done for doing a good job. But
well,
when in
but
fact you've done nothing.
I talk to people, right? That's my job, several of my jobs, right? And I don't expect them to agree with me. I expect pushback. The whole point is the give
Mm,
and take of the different perspectives, right?
mm,
That's not what you're getting when you interact with this in this kind of way.
no.
And like, even if you try, there's like, I think I had to turn off 18 different defaults to get it to stop giving me slavish responses. It
Yeah.
has all these defaults to make you feel good. I
Yeah.
describe it to people as a
Mm.
5-year-old crossed with a Labrador retriever.
Mm,
It wants to help you. Oh, please, 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 please. But it's 5. And so it's like, it's not very helpful.
yeah.
And so, but people that are relying on the personal affective way that you're talking about,
Mm,
I would say counseling, intense human counseling is what's
mm,
in order here.
In a sense, for me, I think ChatGPT is a kind of it's just the most visible kind of instance of the shifting of the affective realm that has gone on since since the web really began in 20 odd years ago, which I don't think really in a way. That's what I was saying about us talking about it in a particular kind of way. But I think kind of in terms of our emotional responses and our emotional sphere, no, it's not just about money. It's not just about transactions. It's not just
mm,
about goods or exploitation. There's something to do with the fact that, well, I'm talking to Josh in California 30 years after I knew him. And I'm talking to you, Eamon, kind of as well. And we're
mm.
across multiple time zones. But there's a kind of, we enter into a kind of a different kind of affective realm
Yeah.
when we're interacting here. I mean, it was so evident during COVID when I was teaching during COVID how
Yeah.
difficult that was to manage. And in a sense, it kind of encouraged us to kind of strategize in a very different way about those kind of things.
Yes.
Mm,
But I think there's just not enough focus on that idea of the emotional and affective ways in which the digital realm has really altered
mm.
things very, very, very quickly.
But
Yeah.
Brian, I think you
But
bring up a really good point there insofar as how COVID has almost bridged the gap to make this more acceptable.
yeah.
Because when we were in COVID, we were so reliant on technology, on the QR code, on the connection between digital more so, and those who were not involved in digital activity were forced to be because they
Mm-hmm.
had to get into that space. And thereafter, doing this sort of advanced AI invention that happened thereafter just became okay.
But I think the other opposite has happened as well, because a lot of the things that happen with shifting everything to online, right? I had to get recertified to teach online. They made us have new kinds of in-servicing to make it a much more affective experience for
Mm, of
students, precisely
Mm-hmm.
because so many people had not taught in that modality before, for example.
course.
And on business side, like being able to use something like Slack instead of email was developed precisely so you could have more informal touches with people and not have to make it a company-wide issue when something went wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
we have changed and adapted in ways that put the agency back in our hands on one branch of this,
Mm,
but that also takes the agency away from us in really radical ways
yeah.
on the other
Mm-hmm.
side of it.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm with you, Brian, but I think at the end of the day, that affective development here is being driven by monetary concerns, not
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of funding, but because of return on investment. And that's like
Mm-hmm.
I said, that was the weird thing to me. Here's boxing robots wearing headgear. That's
Yeah.
to personalize the robot,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
for the spectator. That's not
Mm-hmm.
for the fucking robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Oh
It's that
absolutely.
dear.
it's that scene in Neuromancer. No, it's the short story, Burning Chrome, where they're in the bar and they're using dueling biplanes. And you could make the two dueling things be anything. The whole intention that people are betting on in the bar is that it's something that's recognizable. It's something that is part of the
That brings them
nostalgia,
together.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of the human,
Mm.
not something that is like technological wizardry that is like
But
out of science
is that
fiction.
not what ChatGPT is doing? It's like it's affirming your interests or in what you're asking or what they're asking, and they're kind of they're reverberating something in the positive
Right.
way.
But do you want your tools to be a puppy? That's what I'm saying, right? Like
Yeah.
if a friend gives you pushback, you think about it, and that friends should hopefully give you
Yeah.
pushback and not just say, yo, you go girl all the
Yeah.
time, right? Let you know when you're doing it not right. That's not what's going to happen with this. This is the opposite. It's going to keep, that's why you like steered off course, because as long as it feels like it's making you happy, then
Yeah.
guess what?
But
It
I've seen,
because it's been programmed to do that.
yeah, yeah. But I've seen this in schooling as well. I've taught in secondary school and I've taught in primary schools, and I've seen how children and teenagers are now the leaders. It's not the other way around, because they
Yeah.
just say mom and dad are going to be are like, why am I doing badly in school? He's doing fine and he's progressing, but he needs to work harder. If you say that, it's like the whole world is coming up underneath them.
But I think that now you're going to take us down. We don't have time for that. We can
We
save that for
don't.
another discussion. When Brian comes back another time, we'll talk about that one, because that's a huge other thing, right?
Yeah,
But absolutely, the issue of convenience underlies that just as much,
yeah,
because it's the convenience of the consumer.
yeah,
Consumer as buyer, buying education,
yeah.
consumer as buying of time, right? Like it's all of a piece. The modern world is, in a sense, right? It's like it's something out of the 70s. It's the idea that speeding up, things keep speeding up over and over again. And the way
Mm.
you deal with that is to make it more convenient for yourself. Let something else do the work for you.
Brian has something on the tip of his tongue.
I do. I was just going to ask both of you, who are both painters, working
Yes.
in material art practice. How does this kind of shifting ground in terms of digital affectivity, how does does it have any impact at all upon the way in which you think about how you disseminate your own work? Not just in terms of gallery exhibition, but kind of how you put your work out there, or how you even think about how it's going to be received. Does it have any influence on it?
So, like I said, I had that conversation. And what I leaned into was a third way, because my work, even when I paint, has texture. It has a three
Mm,
dimensionality to it that can't
yeah.
actually be captured accurately.
Hmm.
So I'm cool with pictures, because even if you tried to reproduce it, the best you can get is a print of something, because my paintings are designed to be touched. My paintings are
Mm,
designed to be interacted with in some kind of way, right? And
Hmm.
when I'm doing
mm,
sculptural work, absolutely that those thermo driven, completely unique. Good luck trying to make it yourself.
Mm.
Ha ha ha. So I'm just kind of leaning in, to use that mid 2010s term. I'm
Mm.
leaning into the thing that I think makes me able to keep making the work I want to make. Eamon does stuff though that is much more sort of digital-esque. And so that
Mm.
what are you doing? That would be
To
interesting.
well, I mean, to an extent, I mean, I kind of have two different types of processing, insofar as I absolutely do quite a lot of textural activity, and like I use a lot of plaster in the 2D work that I make. And if I think what I had done before was maybe take a photograph of that and put it through the AI generator and just say, what is your interpretation of this? And then they just send me back a whole load of crap, and I'm just like, okay, disregard that. However, what I may have like gained from it, but also not very successfully, is to say, okay, what are the open calls that are available right now? When are those deadlines going to happen? And will my work be suitable for that? And what way should I be kind of approaching this? And they come back with just the very generic open calls that are happening across cities, that are like, the very typical Saatchi open calls, or the kind of
yeah.
general arts festival kind of activities. And it's kind of like, okay, that's fine, but that's not kind of what I was asking for. Um, and like, so in that way, the digital work I've not processed any of them through the digital stuff, because it's all, I use my iPad and I'm painting directly onto it, and I do so very much in the same sort of style points as what I would with a brush, with a paintbrush. And I, like, yeah, it is a bit flatter, and it kind of sometimes can be a little less dense, if you will. But it's like I I don't accept what they're saying, and I think something that I would always advise to anybody using AI is that you need to interrogate what they say and not take it for face value, and that's kind of how I deal with it. I'm very cynical about it.
Mm, mm.
What about you, Brett? Because you've been doing some stuff with Procreate.
I have,
Mm,
I have, yeah, and a bit. I suppose a bit like what you're saying, Eamon, there about kind of. It's interesting looking recently about how whether I was trying to kind of figure out whether my mark making, etc., was different on Procreate than it was on paper or canvas or whatever, and it's not so different
mm.
really.
Yeah,
And that was quite surprising to me, actually.
yeah.
Did you find the same thing, Amy?
I did, and I think a lot of people kind of when I do put a painting in a digital sphere beside a digital painting, it's very difficult to kind of pick which one was physical and which one is not.
So this is a good transition. Why don't we switch over to some shots of Brian's
Yeah,
work? And
absolutely.
because like you do some very interesting kind of collage stuff that
Mm.
involves text, and so
Yeah.
I would
Oh,
in the context
apologies.
of
Hey, brother.
That's not you.
digital,
Back to the robots.
in the context of like digital production, right? Like, could you see yourself doing something like this using Procreate
Yes.
instead of?
And in fact, in my most recent work, I have been doing it, but it gets a very different quality.
Yeah, I could imagine
There's
so.
a yeah, there's a kind of slightly glassy quality to it.
Hmm.
It becomes very polished very quickly.
Yeah.
So this is, of course, this was done with inks and charcoal and whatever directly onto paper, as you can see with the page pasted onto some onto some board. So yeah, it works very. In a sense, it's not dissimilar in terms of your technique,
Mm,
but the kind of the way in which the compositing, I suppose, works
absolutely. Yeah.
means that the kind of the final thing feels very very different, really different.
So let's
Um,
back up for a second. How did you get onto this as your practice in the first place, right? Because you decided to go for an MFA and you decided to start to combine text and imagery together. So how did that kind of become your practice?
well, actually, kind of it's something that the this practice actually preceded me doing the masters. Strangely enough, it was what got me onto the masters. Um, it's Tom Phillips, the British kind of artist whose book the Humanoid was given to me, or kind of videos about it was given to me by an art teacher when I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and it struck me, and it's been with me ever since, really.
Yeah.
But kind of it meshed with my kind of obsession with H.G. Wells's scientific romances,
Mhm.
and particularly with the Time Machine, which I find endlessly fascinating. It's one of those things I could wang on boringly for many many minutes, but won't. This is actually a page from the Chronic Argonauts, which was the short story that preceded the Time Machine.
Mm.
And he wrote it actually not too far from where I live, in a place called Holt, which is on the border of Wales and England, where he was a very short-lived tutor to a very rough boarding school, where he was playing football on the field. They ruptured his spleen for him, dear poor old Herbert. So basically, it was something I want to do as a kind of critical practice as well as a creative practice, to see
Mm.
in that Phillips's way what can be revealed about other texts and other texts through, and what other stories it can tell in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think what
Um,
I'm really liking from this that I feel it may be more of a struggle in a digital process is is that collage element. That is the physical collage element, and the fact that that sheet of paper has come from something that is archival in your own practice or that's been part of
yeah,
your of something that's physical, and it's the life that's in that and how you've ripped that out or how you've applied that into it and how it connects with the image that's behind it and the marking that you've done on top of it, that if you just scanned it from, maybe it's just another way of presenting it, but if you just scanned that with a scanner and put it through Procreate and then applied the different textures to it and kept maybe the rawness of the scan, then that's just a different dynamic that you're creating in that. But I feel from looking at this image here and thinking about it as a real piece and having that real image that's put into it and pasted on, and how that had to connect and how you've very boldly marked around the particular pieces of text. To me, anyway, personally, I think it has a better legacy, or it has more depth to it, in not only in its presentation but in its lifetime.
you have to make certain different decisions as well, because one of
Mm,
the things that I've noted is that different editions of the same book will produce different text,
of course.
and different images.
Yeah, yeah,
And
Yeah.
also you're looking at the kind of quality of paper as well.
of course. Yeah.
So I love working with the kind of old everyman editions from the early part of the 20th century, because they take paint and ink beautifully well, and
Mm,
they're a gorgeous paper to work with.
Yeah.
But of course, you're not making those decisions on paper Procreate. It's kind of, in a sense,
yeah.
there's a kind of a smoothness, frictionlessness quality to it,
Yeah.
whereas you're obviously not having that in the paper.
But you could. I was just thinking, I know an artist who does work with a risograph, and right, with the whole point of risograph is you have all these different generations,
Mm.
and what she cuts stuff up and then sews it together and creates like physical kind of weavings out of stuff that's been printed, right? So you can
Yep.
print, you can create stuff digitally and then print it onto whatever
And
substrate you
then, yeah, and
wanted,
then
right?
layer it
So
that way.
you could track down a stock, because you're not going to find that paper today. It's not made anymore, but you could find old stock, for example, and do that and build up different layers. But
Yeah.
I would still argue, right? What we're basically saying is the digital side of this always leaves what you said, a certain glossiness, a certain, what I always just thought of as like what I was doing, graphic design. It's supposed to have a certain kind of finish polish,
Yeah.
and the software has been designed so even if you're not very good at art, to still have a finish polish. And if you are good, well, then it just allows that polish to be even more polished, right? But it's still mostly the software putting that final layer on, not really you in the same kind of way.
We have another piece here as well, which is
Yeah.
I love this piece. I think this is really gorgeous. You want to talk about this one a little bit?
Well, this is the final page of the full treatment of the time machine. I chose an edition which had 100 pages because I was working on it. I started working on it in 2018. And so it became it was about the centenary of the ending of the First World War, blah, blah, blah. And I found out some family history to do with a great grandfather who had actually been gassed in the war. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't even know who he was. And around this time, I found out something about him and the fact that he was he wasn't he was a soldier, but he worked on the railways in France. And he'd been gassed and then was taken back to Aldershot in southern England and died there.
Wow.
And so the kind of story, it started off as a kind of slightly gothic-y take on the time machine, but then it became a story to do with the war. And Wells is, even he's quite, by the time he dies in 46, he's very cynical. Mind at the end of its tether, there's this book which is he's kind of lost hope about human beings, the great utopian. But even in the end of the time machine, there's this kind of idea of civilization being a foolish heaping, and so there's this kind of despair even, and you find it in War of the Worlds as well, with the kind of the London as kind of mausoleum really. And so I wanted to express, and the second half of this book is kind of dominated by black, red, and white and red as these dominant colours, which I've kind of gone down to and using a lot of charcoal, I think, as you can see here. And so I wanted to slightly rewrite that kind of that all-encompassing despair that seems to kind of take hold of Wells, and to use the two poppies, the poppy of peace as well as the kind of the red remembrance poppy, which is become politicized and degraded as a kind of symbol now.
Yeah.
To think, to I don't know, to move beyond the idea of nation and that idea of history as seen through those kind of ideological lenses, and just kind of, I suppose, here at the very end, to emphasize the commonality of life, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's really incredible, and the strength in this image I think is superb.
Thank you.
Personally, anyway, in my opinion.
Show us the next one.
The next one, we have another one which is a little brighter, and maybe I should have, because I'm assuming this is in the middle of it.
Now, this is the some of the images in the earlier part of the book were riffs on art from that point, that from World War One art, or the kind of the vorticists in Britain from just before. And this is an image which was basically a kind of version of a painting by Nevinson, C.W.R. Nevinson, who was a war artist, but using that idea of the vortex. So again, I wanted to kind of try to insert some of the flavour of that period's art and its dynamism, essentially. And it's very problematic relation to war, particularly in terms of futurism. Of course, if you think of Wyndham Lewis and the war issue of Blast, which another kind of page is actually based on, to try to countermand some of those narratives, which become even more problematic, in the UK, to do with commemoration and both wars in the 20th century and what they mean in terms of national character in quotation marks and everything else. And so to try to come to terms with both the positive energies, which I find really kind of invigorating in Vorticist art. I think some amazing kind of some amazing images, but also the problematic political freight that comes with them at the same time.
Yeah.
And therefore to rewrite them in a way and to reinscribe them into a different kind of context.
I think the line in this is brilliant. The future is contained in one's imagination. I just think that's like fantastic and so topical right now. Um, it's very much history repeating itself, in the amount of control we have over our imagination and what actions that we do take and how we take them.
It goes back to what kind of I suppose Josh was saying before about Amazon Prime
Yeah.
and the idea that even our imaginations are foreclosed somehow. The boundaries of those things are already mapped out and sold to us or sold back to us.
Well,
and ways in which
right. And so then the issue that becomes like, where's agency in that? And like the meta commentary that you're doing by building up the layers, that's the response, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And speaking of layers, we have an extract of one of your beautiful film pieces that I'm going to just show a little glimpse of for our audience. But if you do want to see the whole piece, do check out the link in our description. But here's just a little extract.
Breakers grasp and sting the slate of Llangrannog. Cliff faces etched black by salt and spray. Sandflies cling to legs, searching for a rat.
With a friend,
The hiss,
a colleague, we've made a couple of films. One on digital, just shot around the campus of Lancaster, and having a rather Ballardian take on the whole thing. And then we used Super 8 black and white to make a short film, which is a kind of a journey from there through to Trallsvanith, which is this disused, decommissioned, I should say, nuclear power station in North Wales. And so from there, kind of, I was kind of fascinated by the potential for, I suppose, making poetry films or essay films. The essay film has always been something that's really fascinated me as a form. And so I wanted to think about the way in which my words, which are taken from an essay published in a collection in this film, and to think about how the relationship between the music, the visuals, and the words could in recontextualizing them from the essay, how they might work in terms of not aestheticizing that particular place in a way. It's a tourist beach called Llangrannog, which we go to an awful lot on the Mid Wales coast. But trying to kind of, I suppose an effective mood piece in a way. Just kind of, I think my films are there, and lots of my work is really they're not narrative driven in that kind of way. They're more to do with
emotional response, and it's
yes, exactly.
Yeah. And
But
Brian,
it's always the juxtaposition of different pieces, right? Like you like to work with collage, you like that remix culture, right? That was the 70s and 80s. That's what we grew up with. You were supposed to take stuff and remix it and make it different. And it seems like that's the through line, despite the particular medium that you're working with.
It is. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday, actually, and in relation to coming on, and thinking about that, and time being another thing which I go back to again and again. Time machine, the waves and clocks, and so in a sense, using time-based media like film or video is a kind of slightly natural extension to some of the things that I've done elsewhere in terms of this juxtaposition or collision of different registers or different modes at the same time.
how have you presented these video files or these essay films that you've created?
And so some of them have been exhibited in the gallery spaces. Some of them, one of the films I made with my friend Bruce, we took to an academic conference and showed which is I think kind of most people they didn't quite grasp what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
Maybe the audience wasn't quite right. The images have been that you saw before. They've been published as books.
Okay.
So kind of they're but again, there have been some have been exhibited in galleries. It's quite difficult because of course they're very small. And so for one of them, I kind of offered them in a as a kind of a grid. So that was quite interesting to kind of. So there was about
See how they're
16 of them.
connecting. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Not
Lovely.
necessarily in sequence and telling a story, but kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
kind of getting people to try to put
Assemble.
themselves put it together themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. I think they look beautiful as an independent piece though as well. They kind of have their own integrity.
No, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because working in that when you've got 100 images,
Yeah,
because it's because you're working with sequence and narrative as well a little bit, but
of
also you're
course.
wanting each of the images themselves to be meaningful
Yeah.
in and of themselves, and so it's a kind of having to have too many things in your own head at the same time while you're putting it together.
Yeah,
We're all
exactly.
we all struggle with
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's interesting because someone who's known you from like the research side of what your career was, the ways in which you channeled those interests into
Mm,
then your practice, it's interesting to see the way it manifests, right? I mean, that's what we talk about. A practice is supposed to be representation of like who you are as a person. And
yeah.
it's not just like the techniques that you use, but also the things that you're interested in, what you're working with for sources, and the kind of combinations you're trying to make. As I say, like having known you for so long, I can see how that stuff is like in every part of what you're working with. It's really
Mhm.
interesting to see that way.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
No, it's been great. And it's been great to see the different variants of your work and how they do really connect. But Brian, super having you on the show. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. We're giving the audience a bumper special with all of your work. But please do everyone check out Brian's Vimeo channel, which we will have a link below where you can see his wonderful film work. And Brian, how else can people check you out?
I do have an Instagram
Yeah,
feed, as you can see below. And I do have a website, which is brianbaker365.com.
brilliant.
So they can go there and check out lots of different things.
Do check that out. Follow him because he is cool and he has lots of cool work to share. So get on that, folks. And yeah, Brian, we've been absolutely delighted to have you on, and you've been wonderful to talk to. So thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
Josh, we have to tell all of
Eamon.
our audience members that they need to do some work, don't they, in order to kind of
Yeah.
keep us pushing through and getting to the age-old age of 90. What do they
So
have to do?
regardless of what medium you're watching or listening to us on, you can hit this thing called subscribe. It's another thing that'll give you notices, right? Little bell thing or whatever it is. Hit those things. Leave a
Yes.
comment.
Yeah,
Make suggestions for our next guests. Volunteer to be a guest. Come on
absolutely.
down.
Yeah,
Buy some
definitely.
swag. Find us a sponsor.
All of
How's that,
those
Eamon?
things, all of those things. That's fantastic, Josh. But yeah, if you do want to be a guest, do contact us at hello@newcollective.com or just drop us a DM because, we're always on the socials. But yeah, that's all we have time for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us again, Brian. And until next week, when we will be spilling the RT with our quick fix, our quick cuppa. That's all coming to you right here next Thursday on all your favorite podcast channels and, of course, on YouTube. That's all for now. Talk to you soon, everyone. Have a great week.
Bye bye.
Bye.